Hey there, welcome back to episode 2 of the 2020 Rewind, where we're going to go back and take a look at a whole bunch more level 50 characters I have on the City of Heroes Homecoming servers, Excelsior Shard. I'm going to be looking at a couple of brutes, couple of blasters, couple of controllers, corruptors, etc. until I get 20 more level 50s. I'm going to go ahead and show you the builds using Mids Hero Design, or actually I think it's called Mids Reborn now. And then I'm going to go ahead and show you some solo missions, running some basic tips and, sorry, just some radios or paper missions, some council, that kind of stuff. Your basic, repeatable type of mission. And then I'm going to follow that up with a video about the team and how this character will work with, play nice with others, hopefully. So let's go ahead and take a look at episode 2 here, Brute number 2, Shok Ko'lar, or Shok Collar. He's your classic Saber Claws Electric Brute. This is the old school farming build that used to be in the game when City of Villains first came out, because you could do the lightning field. I think it was the earliest that an AoE aura was, a damage aura was available for brutes. Lightning or electric armor was only a villain side armor set, if I remember. And claws, you have ye old spin attack where you can just slam a bunch of dudes around you with a PBAOE. So anyway, I picked up from that original concept and threw in the Mew mastery, so I got some more electrical lightning damage. So let's take a look at mids. We'll see what the plan is, what the numbers look like, what it is on paper, and we'll follow that up with the testing. Let's go. All right, here is Shock's mids build. We have from the claws set everything except for your tier 1 swipes. We got strike, slash, spin, follow up, taunt, focus, eviscerate, and shockwave. A couple of these powers, shockwave and focus, are actually ranged attacks. So that's something that claws brings to the table that many other attack melee sets don't. Is it has two relatively long range, I guess, if you want to say that, 40 feet and 30 feet on these range attacks. The rest of it is just, stabbing you and slashing you with claws. The powers, for the most part, have some minus defense with something like slash. You've got, what is it? Focus has some knockback, Eviscerate has some minus defense, and Shockwave has knockback. So a couple of knockbacks, a couple of minus defenses. I didn't take swipe, like I said, so I'm not really gonna mention it. So I'm using those fast animating quick attacks, similar to what I just ran with Nordic Star with staff fighting. So a lot of fast, quick animating little hits, doing a bunch of slashing damage as you go, or lethal damage as it's called here in City of Heroes. And I'm going to couple that with electric armor, which similar again to Nordic Star, who I just ran the other day. Electric armor is a softer set as far as just raw, resistance and defense numbers. It relies a lot upon just layering your defenses and resistances. You'll see my set bonuses are really going to be key here to give me as good numbers as I can get. I'm also going to go ahead and team this up with the fighting pool and grab me tough and weave. And I've got combat jumping in there as well to give me some additional defense. But overall, electric armor, in my opinion, is a bit more of an offensive, debuffy kind of set. Lightning field really sort of sets the stage with that. Damage aura that you can get at, I think it's, well, now you can get it like level 1, but back in the day it was like level 4 before they changed the levels at which you can get your primary and secondary powers. But anyway, lightning field, it's a damage aura. It has a minus endurance component to it, so you can theoretically drain your enemies dry over time. So that's one of its big things to do. And then you got power sync and energy. Well, power sync's the more of the offensive weapon. So this is going to be similar to what you saw me doing again with Nordic Star, where she was draining endurance from the enemies. The difference here is I've got power sync coupled with lightning field, so end drain is a more viable tactic with electric armor than it is with energy armor. So that's one of the things you'll see me doing, at least over time. I can drain enemies dry. But you got to survive until you can get to that point. So I'm also going to be pairing that up with the Mew powers. Mew. I don't know how to say that. Moo, Mew, whatever. Anyway, electric fences, ball lightning, static discharge, electrical damage, more endurance drain is possible from these guys as well. So I've got lots of ways to drain endurance. It's not the greatest mitigation out there in the game because anybody who's played knows that the mobs, the enemies, they don't seem to play by the same endurance rules that characters play by or archetypes play by. They seem to be able to activate their powers with slivers of endurance somehow. They don't have to worry about, their toggles crashing, that kind of thing. So unless you can drain somebody down to zero and then keep them there with minus recovery, it's not a great tactic. It can slow down the incoming attacks because the enemies need to recover enough endurance to attack you. Uh, so there is some mitigation there, but as a just drain them dry zero and they stay there, that's not something you're going to see at least with this build and with Lightning Field and Power Sync. You can get them pretty low, but it's not a permanent situation. I do have some extra management or debuffery planned because I also have taken, I'll get into this with the incarnates, but I do have the interface incarnate that debuffs recovery and endurance as well. So that'll all kind of team together to make a decent mitigation strategy. But for the most part, he's going to be relying upon these shields, charged armor giving you smash lethal energy resistance, conductive shield, you've got fire, cold, energy negative resistance. Static shield is going to be your Mez protection, plus it's got recovery debuff protection and some psi resistance in there. Grounded gives you some additional energy and negative resistance and endurance drain resistance, some immobilizing KV protection. Lightning Reflexes is a kind of a weirdo. It's actually like a buff that's an always on, boost your recharge, boost your speed, and your resistance to slow. So this is going to play into this quick, fast animating, multiple attacking strategy you'll see me deploying with this character. Just a lot of real fast, quick animated attacks is going and going and going. And of course, to keep firing away like that, you're going to need some endurance mitigation. So you get that with Energize. I talked about Energize with Nordic Star. I don't know if they're the exact same power with the Energize and Electric and Energy Armor or Energy Aura. They both have the same names. I don't know if they have the same exact stats or whatnot, but for the most part, this is your heal. But it's again not the greatest heal like I was talking about with Nordic Star. It's probably one of the weakest heals, if not the weakest heals, as far as I'm concerned in armor sets for tanks and brutes and scrappers here. So it is decent for healing, but not the greatest. It does have a plus regen, which is nice, and it has probably even better. You got the endurance discount. So because I'm gonna be firing away at these powers a lot and quickly and quite often, you want to be able to manage your endurance. So that's going to help there. Plus, Power Sync is going to be an endurance recovery power and a faux debuff of their endurance. So these two together should keep my blue bar pretty filled and hopefully maintain my green bar high enough that I can survive. Because when you look at the numbers, I think overall, Shok here has a little bit less. Well, he has definitely less defense than you saw with Nordic Star's build with Energy Aura. He does have a little bit more resistance, especially for energy damage, and I think psi damage he's pretty resistant as well. But for the most part, he's going to rely upon, that uh, deflecting the alpha by, for instance, you'll see me using what is it, shockwave, right? I'm gonna be throwing uh, my claws and like knocking people down. So I'll be using some of that knockdown, that knockback with that, and what is it, focus to kind of keep a bunch of people down. I might just flat out open with shockwave just to launch it and knock a bunch of people down. Because if I can knock half the group down, that's 50% damage mitigation right there. And then if I can follow that up by getting into melee with them to let that endurance drain start to hit them, and I got some other little tricks up my sleeve that hopefully will work here. That'll then give me that advantage to kind of stay in the game because then I can start landing Eviscerate, which has some I think that also is a knockdown power as well. I think Eviscerate does have a chance to knock down. So we'll have that firing away. But, I'm going to get in there melee and just start unloading with my attack powers. And hopefully survive by draining, by clicking energize. I also am going to have the heal rebirth. I'm going to be throwing that out there for my destiny. So that'll be another way to kind of keep on my feet. Anyway, similar build with Nordic Star, at least conceptually. Just going to be going at it with a little bit of a different tact. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the slotting, some of the power picks here. So if you take a look around, let me shut the pop-ups off real quick. You can see I went with Mako's once, twice here. I like Mako's as a set in general because it gives you some resistance to some weird stuff like toxic and scythe, but 5 slotting you get smash lethal resistance, so that's going to be your 2 most common damage types for the most part. Plus you get some hit points, plus you get a damage boost. So I've got that a couple times. I didn't go more than that because most of my other attacks are actually PB AoEs, but I've got that there with those two. Then with my PB AoE attacks like Spin, I went ahead and grabbed the Brute ATO, the Unrelenting Furies. So that one has the proc for regeneration and endurance. I didn't go all 6 slots on it, but I have 5 to give me some melee defense, smash lethal defense, some more damage buffing, recovering regen, and then I put in the Armageddon chance for fire damage to proc some more damage. Overall, this is going to be a much more offensive build than what you saw me play with Nordic Star. And if you haven't seen my Nordic Star videos, you need to go back and check those out at some point too, so you know what the heck I'm talking about as I compare these two builds. And you should probably like and subscribe to the channel while you're there. But anyway, taking a look at that, I've got lots of damage kind of stacked up here in the spin attack, so that's going to be nice. Then I've got follow-up. I've got the set of Hecatomb. That has some more resistance is what I was going for there, plus some recovery, so I got fire cold resistance there. You come over here to focus, which is that single target, throw your claws and knock somebody down. That has Thunderstrike 4 slotted. Similar reason I gave with Nordic Star here. It's got some defense for, energy and negative plus range, and it's got the accuracy boost. Because similar to staff fighting, Claws does not have a clickable, aim or build up power. It does have, follow up that does give you the plus damage, the plus to hit boost, but you have to hit with it first. So that's where it gets a little bit tricky. So you need to get into melee, you need to hit somebody. If you miss, then you don't get the boost. And then this power itself needs to be fairly, accurate in order to hit, just to get the whole dominoes roll or fall in there. So anyway, that's a similar concept there. So I want to get some extra accuracy here and there as I can. Eviscerate, this is your melee cone. It's kind of like Ripper, if you're familiar with that from Spines. So you do that somersault, front flip, or whatever it is, and come down and just like slash into people with both fists. Pretty devastating hit. And like I said, I'm pretty sure it knocks down, if I'm not mistaken. But maybe I'm thinking of Ripper does that. But Eviscerate's very similar. Minus defense, though. Big old superior damage. I've got the other Brute ATO set here. So I've got the Fury bonuses procking. And then the rest of it is just, 5 slotting the whole set. So I've got hit point boost, which is nice. Some more defense. Smash lethal, melee, the damage boost again, some recharge boost in here, so that's a nice set. Then continuing down, I grab cross punch from, I love this power from the fighting pool, so if I can get it, if I am going to be going into a melee kind of a build and I'm taking the fighting pool, I'll try to get cross punch in there because I like that. It's a pretty quick animating power. It's a small cone and it fits with what I'm doing with this character. A lot of little cone attacks, a lot of little PB AoEs. So I've got an obliteration set going in here with another damage proc, resistance to smash and lethal, another damage boost here. So you can see I'm adding damage and some damage procs wherever I can so that I'm going to be a much more offensive, damaging output. Then I've got Shockwave. This is your big tier 9. You throw this cone of, your claws knock a bunch of people down. knock them back. Actually, I did not slot this for knockback to knockdown. I want to knock things back with this character because it's part of my mitigation. Just drill the group into the back corner, and it's a fairly tight cone or fairly wide cone. I think it's a short, so you can kind of be in melee whacking on people, and as they're almost dead, you just boomerang them, and they go flying into the wall. Now, if you're throwing this out, opening attack or scattering things all over the place, well, that's going to be a detriment to yourself. But you just got to be smart about it, like any other sort of these cone, and that's cone attacks, these knockbacks. All right, so Annihilation set. It's got the Chancer debuff, the resistance debuff proc in there, so that'll help me with my damage. Again, it's got a maximum endurance in it. It's got some damage resistance, some regen, the endurance discount. So a lot of the common reasons I've already been talking about. And then from the Muse set here, I've got 1, 2, 3 of these ranged AoE attacks, and I've got the Positron set in all three of them, and all three of them are slotted identically. So I have damage procs, the energy damage for Positron in all three of these. I'm getting some recovery. I'm getting some more damage resistance to fire and cold. I'm getting some more accuracy for each one. I'm getting some more recharge for each one. So I've got a bunch of these things just kind of piling up and stacking up. The only other damaging set that I've got going right now that I skipped over because it's part of the armor is my lightning field. Lightning field is another, damage attack. So anybody who gets within range of me is going to be getting lightning damage or energy damage and losing endurance. And I've got a Shirako's Dervish set in there. Another damage proc sitting with this one. If you look at the set bonuses, you got regen, right? We've got some damage resistance for energy negative. We got more accuracy boosting. We got some defense boosting in here. So that's a pretty solid set. So all these sets are adding up, more resistances, some damage boosting, some accuracy boosting, here, there, everywhere, getting what I can. So taking that, we then couple it with our armor set over here, which is electric. So I've got sitting here in charged armor, I have 4 slotted unbreakable guard. It's grabbed all the ones that have resistance in it, so I'm capping resistance on this power, which is smash lethal energy. And then I also grabbed the knockback protection instead from steadfast protection here. That's because with grounded, which does give you KB protection, you have to literally be on the ground. And there's been plenty of times where I've been jumping and I've gotten knocked down my can because I don't have my feet on the ground anymore. So do be aware of that you need to be grounded in order to get the KB protection. So I like to have that little extra in there to keep myself safe. Because I'm not even sure the mag resistance on grounded itself is that the -6 maybe? I think if I'm reading this right, the knockback protection is, what is that, 15? Yeah, it looks like it's a 15. So anyway, 15, and I got 4 more from Steadfast over here. So I'm 19, almost 20. So I can't be knocked back for the most part as long as I'm on the ground. Anyway, so I got that in there. Maybe I could swap that out if, needs be. I can move around if I'm not super worried about being knocked back. But I always seem to get knocked back by something as I'm jumping through the air. Conductive Aura, I also have the Unbreakable Guard set in there. I have it 5-slotted this time, though. I've got the plus max hit point that's thrown in there, so that's going to help, boost up, of course, your maximum hit points. Duh. And then the slotting on this, if I scoot this down, you can see it better. Go. With the 5 slotting on this one, I'm getting those resistances again. And with the 5th slot, I've got some toxic and some psi resistance. You'll see with my final numbers, my psi resistance is actually pretty good. So I got that. And then in tough, I went ahead and grabbed impervium armor. That's going to give me some more recovery, some defense to psi. You're going to get some resistance to psi because I took that unique, or sorry, that one's not unique in impervium. You can actually stack these 5 times. So I grabbed that psi resistance there. I think, yeah, it's a 6% psi resistance. That's nice. So tough's already going to be pretty much capped with just, the 3 resistances for Smash Lethal. Plus, I already had Smash Lethal with my charged armor, so I didn't feel the need to throw another resistance-y type of, set, not set, but one of these enhancements in there. That's why I went with the psi resistance. I can afford to not cap the toughs Smash Lethal, I can instead dip a little bit in some psi resistance because I've already got a whole bunch of Smash Lethal coming at me from charged armor. Lightning Reflexes, you really can't slot this one too much beyond just like a run or a flight. So it's like Swift, in your what do you call these inherent powers now? So like Swift, you can slot it with either run or flight. So if you are going to be a flying type of brute, well then yeah, you could throw flight one in here. I'm not flying. I'm going to be running around, so I threw that in there. I've got taunt, and a lot of times with taunt, I'll throw perfect zingers, damage proc in there just because, I mean, a taunt, I necessarily don't need a big long duration taunt. For the most part, once you start hitting things and killing them and damaging them with your aura, they're going to come after you anyway. So this is that initial, pull somebody, or if there's your allies are getting their butt kicked, across the room, you can taunt and bring there. But it throws out a little extra damage, throws a little extra 47 at level 50 against 54s, I think is what it's going to score. So that's all that's for. Beyond that, Energize. I did this with Nordic as well. I went ahead and 5-slotted this with Doctored Wounds. Again, some more resistance. Smash Lethal, Fire Cold, some recharge in there as well. So that's the whole point of that one. And then kind of rounding out the list here, we've got Power Sync. I didn't go with the stun concept like I was doing with Nordic. This would actually be a better build to try to do stunning. But I actually was going a lot more damagey offense on this build because this Shok here, Shok Ko'lar, Shok Collar, he's actually a farmer build that I put together for an energy farm that I've built. So if you're looking for an energy farm, you can go ahead and look up. I think it's under my Cold Current account. But anyway, just look for it's one of the circus maps and it's got all electric farming. I forget. I think it's Shocktown Circus or something like that. Anyway, I'm built for that kind of purpose in the most part. So this will be interesting to see how he does against more regular content. So I don't have any sort of control-y things besides the knockdowns. So I've got the efficacy adapter giving me some extra hit points on this one, and I went with the two things that give some recharge. So this is going to be back as quickly as I can get it to come back. Which the recharge on Power Sync for me is 29 seconds. So there you go. I mean, pretty much every group it'll be up in most circumstances. And then I have the perfect zinger chance for damage here. With Nordic, if you saw me playing her, I had in her energy drain, I had the two stun procs. I had the Triumphant Insult and I can't remember the name of it for the Endurance Drain, but there is an Endurance Drain stun proc, so that worked okay for her. I could do that here. I could throw that similar combo, let's say, over in Lightning Field if I don't want to slot that for damage. I could come over here and go Energy Manipulator, chance to stun, and I could throw in the taunts because this aura taunts. I could throw in the Triumphant Insult, chance to disorient. So I could theoretically combine Lightning Field with Power Sync and have a pretty good chance of stunning bosses. I don't want to say nonstop, but pretty frequently. But again, it wasn't what I was shooting for here, but it's something I could do. And if I were to go on a plan like that, I probably would go with like energy melee as my opener or electric melee and throw a bunch more of those energy manipulators in there. And just try to get as much stun stacking as I could, across the board, which would be a great, concept to do. That's more one of the sort of silly builds I might do just to see what happens if I can. Yeah, I can stack 12 mag stun like every 10 seconds or something. That's awesome. But anyway, I didn't do that with this one. And then to kind of close it out, I've got Red Fortune sitting here in Weave. That's just going to give me a little bit of a boost in Smash Lethal again. And then last but not least, I've got Reactive Defense sitting here in Combat Jumping. So that's going to go ahead and give me some scaling, resistance chance. So if you don't know what this proc is all about, the lower your health goes, the greater your damage resistance grows with this particular power. I think it's off the shelf, it's 3%. I believe that increases as you're proportional to how many hit points you've got left or something like that, or how much damage you've taken. All right, so that is the main deal with the sets that I have and the powers I've taken. Let's take a look at the actual numbers now. Pop up the totals. None of the stuff really is designed to synergize like some of my other builds. Like, so in other words, I'm not going for a whole bunch of minus defense. I'm not going for a whole bunch of knockdown. I'm not going for a whole bunch of, minus endurance on this character. Minus endurance is his biggest, planned debuff control type of thing. But really, it's mostly just, damage, 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 fast attacks, that kind of thing. So taking a look at the total numbers, let me go ahead and zoom in on our pop-out window. All right, so here's what we're looking at with everything. Let me turn off the incarnates so we're not getting false hits down here. All right, so here we go. So this is just your basic, loadout here as far as running your sets and your toggles and whatever else. This is what I'm looking at for my output as far as defense and that. I've got defenses, not the greatest, right? 20%. Smash lethal's decent. Melee's okay, 23, but everything else is in the teens. This isn't gonna, you're not gonna survive long in a melee with a melee character with this kind of defense. So you need something to stack it up with, and that's what I've got going here. Smash lethal's pretty good, sitting around 3/4, right? So, 3 out of every 4 points of smash lethal damage is gonna be resisted. Energy, though, I've got that sucker capped, which is probably, one of the top damage types out there with anything electrical or radiation, those types of damages. That's going to be reduced significantly. My fire cold's pretty solid, right? I think this is better than what I had with Nordic Star. So that's pretty good. And then Psi is definitely better than what I had with Nordic Star, sitting at 60%. So I've got these guys, fire cold, Psi sitting at 60. Negatives, 44, not the greatest. Toxic, is terrible. So if I get it with toxic, I'm in trouble. So those are my overall numbers. It's not super duper survivable just looking at these two together because you're gonna get hit fighting +3s and +4s with these defense numbers. You're gonna take damage given your resistances are not capped unless it's energy, right? Now again, remember, I'm built as a farmer for energy, so this is perfectly fine for what I'm trying to do. The farm I'm running has a bunch of lightning electrical attacks, so there's a lot of endurance drain is my biggest concern and energy damage with that one. So I have a lot of things slotted for endurance drain protection and recovery boosting, and then I've got the high energy resistance. But the rest of that stuff is not so great. So in a regular, mission, I'm concerned. Just straight up. On a team, I don't think it's gonna be a problem because I'll probably have some buffs from somebody, and there'll probably be another beefcake out there like a tank who's absorbing, most of the alpha. So I kind of look at this character more as like a scrapper kind of build, more of a almost a little melee, fast, almost stalkery in a sense. Not so much big tough brute or big, Hulk and tank. That's not what his game is. His game is to throw out a bunch of damage in a tight confined, either small cones or, an AoE radius around him, that sort of thing. So if there's somebody else on the team that can kind of soak some of that alpha, can maybe throw out a control and lock down a group, like let's say I got a Dominator or Permadom on the team, that's awesome. They come in and they, lock down a group. I go in there and start cleaning up with all these attack powers and such. But those are what the overall, defensive numbers looking at. Then you take a look at recovery and end drains. I got, my often mentioned goal of 2 to 1 at least between endurance drain and recovery. I want my recovery to be at least twice what my drain is. So I'm okay there. And then when I click energize, that's going to help me out because now I'm down to basically a 3-to-1 ratio, which is my perfect. I would love if it's 3-to-1. Okay, so that's what that's showing you there. Pop that off again. Normally, though, I don't have that. Regen is 176, so if I click that, that doubles it up to 350-ish. So that's nice. And then with follow-up, if I score follow-up, it does give me the plus 10%. I think, let's see what the duration is on this one. Damage buff is 30% for 10 seconds. The hit buff is, yeah. So it's a 10-second duration. I think it's stackable. I think. So if I hit follow up twice in a row within 10 seconds, because its recharge is 5.6. So I think I can theoretically stack that. Now, the reason I mentioned is because if you look at the totals, right, I have a 10% to hit buff. That's coming from if I land follow up. So if I'm going in, and I hit this power earlier, that'll probably be like my opening attack if I'm aside from throwing some like, AoE out there to stun some people, like throwing out what's it called there, shockwave to knock a bunch of people down. Then I might follow it up with follow up, and then start slamming into people with spin and ball lightning, electric fences, whatever I can to start damaging as many people as possible. Now, if I am worried more about survivability, I'm just kind of glancing here. There's things I could do to make this build, safer. I was thinking, just off the top of my head, I could probably, as an example, come in here and throw a Ragnarok chance for knockdown. I've done that before. I could throw that knockdown, let's say in ball lightning. I could put what is it, avalanche in let me see, lightning field would probably be a good place for that. Yeah, avalanche has a chance for knockdown. So I could put chance for knockdown in lightning field. I could put the chance for knockdown in ball lightning. If I did that, mitigation would be, way better than what this current build is. Again, I'm focusing more on damage output because I'm farming a energy farm with this person. So we'll see what happens. If I was to definitely be running this character as, street sweeping or radio missions or whatever the heck, basic stuff, then yeah, I'd probably rework a couple of these sets to get me some more mitigation if necessary. Or I could go with that stun idea, right? I could sit here and go stunning in lightning field plus the knockdown. That would be great mitigation. Just standing around people, they're falling over, they're getting stunned, right? I could do similar idea, like I said, with the stunning from power sync. Right, I could throw that all in there, and this character would be much tankier, much tougher, not because of more defense or resistance, but just knocking things down, stunning them, that kind of stuff. But we'll see what happens. All right, so that's where my overall numbers are currently looking. Recharge is pretty solid. I got an extra 53.8% there. So, and that's really without even trying to go for a recharge. All right, let's see. Now let's take a look at the incarnate stuff. I do have a miracle sitting in here, the plus recovery. Again, remember, because farming lightning attacking foes is going to be necessary here in order to not run out of endurance, because that's definitely a threat on that particular map. So I do have the recovery there. Stamina, I've just got that 2 slotted with 50 plus 5 endurance recovery. Now, for incarnates, what I went with is with my alpha, I went ahead and grabbed muscular radial paragon. This is going to give me more damage, right? Duh. Increases immobilization, which is not super necessary, but I do have an immobilization attack with electric fences, so it's not wasted. And then it's got defense debuff, so I have a couple powers with minus defense in my claw attack, so that's gonna help. To hit debuff, I don't think I have any minus to hit on anything, so that's a useless boost. And then I've got the endurance mod. Again, lightning farm, electric farm, I need to worry about that, so I've got more endurance recovery, but it also is going to help me endurance drain on the other side because it's enhancing my power sync, it's enhancing the drain of my lightning field and my electric attacks from the Mew mastery, and then run speed. So I'm going to have even more run speed between swift and quick lightning reflexes, swift and muscular here. Boom, I'm getting lots of boosting there. So that's what that's all about. So when I click that, you see my recovery goes up to 3.4 from 3.2. So that's boosting that overall just from like the basic stamina. All right, so that's what muscular is all about. It's going to give me damage to stuff. So if you start looking at some of my damage output here, for instance, spin, I click on that. Spin is doing 251.5 with the procs, and so that's pretty good, right? I mean, lightning field's going to be popping out 25 every tick. What is it? Eviscerate, that's going to be 242 for that one. Ball lightning's discharging, what, 164. Shockwave is going to throw out 123. Cross punch is doing 172. So, each of these attacks is doing some decent chunks of damage, and a lot of these things are at or near, the cap. Like damage here, I'm at 116% on Shockwave. Cross punch is 93, almost 94. Above, I'm hitting cap on static discharge, ball lightning, electric fences, eviscerates, at smacking right into the cap. So all these damage attacks are cap, cap, cap all the way through. So muscular is going to be doing that for me. Then I went ahead and grabbed, I told you this earlier, that I went with interface. I took the preemptive one. This gives you minus endurance over time, minus recovery, and the DOT of energy damage. So that is going to help me with some endurance draining. So if we go ahead and let's say take a look now at power sync, let's activate that. So power sync, right, is going to debuff recovery possibly, what is that, minus 266, so like minus 159%. The endurance, I'm gonna be draining 63% of their endurance with this thing. So that's power sync. And then lightning field, it's got endurance draining, what, 4% each tick, I believe it's gonna be going off. You've got recoveries being debuffed 5%. So, any of my damage attacks are going to have a chance to proc the minus recovery. So if I can get hold of an enemy and keep them in my field and hit him with a power sync, and then I've got the preemptive going with my attacks, I can deal some decent minus endurance, minus recovery over time pretty quick. Electric fences is another good example of this, where I've got the chance for minus recovery here from the interface proc. I've got minus recovery from the power itself, minus 133%. The endurance drain isn't that great, but it's there. That's, I think, the other proc is what that is. And then here's the endurance drain from the power itself is 5. 4 ticks of minus 5. So, electric fences is a decent draining power there. Similar, ball lightning is going to drain. It's going to give minus recovery. Static discharge is going to give minus endurance, minus recovery. So I can stack a bunch of those things up pretty quickly now with interface to start to leverage some of this endurance drain stuff. I also went with more minus endurance, minus recovery, because I took ion radial side. So it does the damage, it does the jumping. But it has the minus endurance, minus recovery, and a chance for hold. So it is a more defensive version of Ionic. So it gives me a little something, something. But if I want to try to add that into the mix, right, I get into melee, I throw Ionic right in point blank range. This thing's going to do a nice chunk of minus recovery at 100%. Endurance is minus 35. You got the chance to hold for 12 seconds. That's a mag 4. All right, so that's a cool addition to the mix here. I went ahead and grabbed a rebirth for obvious reasons. Like I already said, hey, I'm going to be taking damage. I already know that. I'm going to be taking a decent bit of damage, and it's a matter of me out damaging the enemy before they kill me. So I got to kill them first. So I've got some heal with Energize, but it's not the greatest heal. So rebirth is almost, prerequisite, I think, for electric armor at these high level, taking on 54s and stuff. Then I did go ahead and grab melee radio. I really like melee radio. It's plus regen, plus defense, so that's going to help my numbers. Take a look at when I click it. Let me go ahead and do this. Turn that off for a second. Turn on the pop-up. So, melee radio, it doesn't actually show it in the numbers here, but it's, I forget the boost is. Where is it? Melee boost. 30% regen for 10 seconds. I don't think it shows it, but anyway, when you're in melee range, it's going to give you ticks of or boosts of plus defense per target within your range. I'm almost positive that's what it's doing. And the regen boosting. So it might show up in the incarnate window. Let me check this out. So hybrid, melee radial. So this power grants you, scoot it over so you can maybe see it. There we go. So this power grants the user stacking regen resistance buff for each enemy in 8-foot radius, and it can stack up to 4 enemies. And it also gives you small regen resistance even with nobody in range. Okay, so that's your benefit of having that thing ready to go. I get into melee with it. I'm gonna get some regen. I'm gonna get some defense out of it. Okay, so I think I read the wrong one. Let me just double check that. Accolade incarnates. Where's melee? And I want hybrid. Yeah, here it is. It's this one. I was reading the wrong one, I think. Form, regen, embodiment. Yeah, it's this one, the one with the defense. There we go. To lock that in place. So static. So you're gonna get regen, defense, and the status bonus. So that's what this power is gonna be adding to you. So it's anyway decent power. Once you get into melee, it stacks against 5. It says up to 5 support. Oh wait, that's 5 different people can stack it. I just keep changing. Okay, stop changing. 9 enemies. Melee radial, yeah, so with a tier 4 melee radial embodiment, it stacks up to 9 times. So yeah, I knew I was reading you the wrong version of it. So you can stack that defense boost 9 times, right? That's beautiful. So that is really the mitigation strategy I'm gonna have is get the freaking the melee running my incarnate, my melee, and start draining the crap out of stuff and just devastating damage them until they stop moving. Then I've got just lore pets. I grabbed the carnies, so I've got the radial on that one. So I forget which one it is, but they use forge on you. So I think forge, and they have whatever the thermal heal is, a single target heal. So that's what the support's going to do. And then the Carney boss is the Dark Ring Mistress, I think. So she's got some nice side damage she throws out there. So she's pretty strong as far as an attacker. All right, so that is, the overall concept here, right? We've got, chances to heal with rebirth. We've got melee boost in defense and regen and melee range. I'm trying to stack as much minus recovery, minus endurance as I can. I've got a whole bunch of damage procs in my build, plus I've got the DOT of energy right here. I've got Ionic is going to do some more damage. It's going to have a chance to hold, debuff endurance, and this is actually pretty long, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see, the recovery that's only 10 seconds. I thought it was longer. Minus endurance, held is only 12 seconds. I thought it was a longer debuff on it. But anyway, it's all going to add up, hopefully. We'll see. That's the point of the proof, right? That's the point of the test. I have this concept on paper. Hey, it sounds good. But what does it do in practice? That is what the rest of the videos are going to do. So I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it for you. I'm not going to make up some story about what this build is going to do. I'm going to show you. And if it gets its butt handed to you, I'm going to tell you exactly where I think it messed up and things that I would do to fix it. But there you go. That's the end of the vid. We'll catch you in part 2 when I start to go through solo missions. Catch it in part 2.